You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. I was out late last night at a soiree, listeners. So just getting rolling here. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are binging. Speaking of the network, so many people came up to me last night at this event wanting to talk about the new Futures show. It was really awesome to hear. Glad to see so many of you are having a great time with the new show. That's awesome. You know, we never know when we launch a new show, especially something a little bit outside of the norm for us, how folks are going to respond. So just hearing all your feedback, seeing the numbers, it has been really gratifying. So thanks to all of you out there who are checking out the latest addition to the network. Of course, the easiest way to do that is just make sure wherever you get the Option Block, get the full network. Then you get the whole kit and caboodle. Don't have to do anything. It all comes to your device of choice whenever you want it. And you can pick and choose there, whichever ones you want to listen to. And judging by the response, a lot of you are choosing to listen to the Futures Rundown. So thanks to you for that. Of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to check out not just the stuff on the on-demand side, but also go behind the velvet rope for a little bit of pro action, the optionsinsider.com/pro. That'll get you awesome pro Q&As like we had earlier this week with the folks from Prosper, as well as options oddities coming up. Maybe later today. Might have to do another early one this week, so it should be fun to get it in your ear holes even earlier. Your own podcast feed, live streams, giveaways, all sorts of fun. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. The place to go to learn more about that as we learn who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the scene of RMC 2024. He's beaming in from Cboe West a.k.a. Snowbird, Utah. He is the Flowmaster himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz. Mr. Flowmaster, welcome back. How are things on the ground at RMC, sir?
Well, somebody stole the Flowmaster's phone.
Oh, no.
It is now hijacking.
Oh, no. Who is this horrible person?
Just walking by him and he said, I'm on Options Insider right now. So we decided we would I would just bogart myself in for 10 seconds. I will let you guys get back to work. I will let you know how my flight looks tomorrow for Vol Views.
All right. Yeah. We'll look forward to your update, Mr. Dr. Vix. Hopefully during Vol Views tomorrow, if you can make it off the plane in time, sir. That should be fun. Well, a little bit of a surprise switcheroo there for the Flowmaster out there, just handing off the phone to any random stranger. Just letting any random schmo come on my network now. I have completely lost control, listeners. That's what's happening here on the network right now. As we go on out to a place, they're always in control out in the hinterlands of Chicago. They don't mess around. They don't let any random Dr. Vixes just take their phone. Of course, I'm talking about St. Charles, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show, sir.
Always a pleasure. No one will ever steal my phone when I'm on the option block, by gosh. Especially when I'm on the mic in the studio.
You got to just box them out, elbow them out. We got to teach the Flowmaster that move, So next time that Dr. Vix comes sniffing around, we tell him, get the heck out of Dodge. And the guy who didn't come to Dodge this year, I think he's a little offended. They didn't have RMC in his hometown again this year. Yes, I'm talking about the Southern volatility mecca known as Austin, where we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, have you gotten over your affront at them daring to move it out of your hometown, sir?
Yes, happy. I'm sad that RMC is not here, but also excited for my friends in Utah to be experiencing all that is volatility. So hope everybody's having a lot of fun out there in Utah. I'm sure they are. I know they've got some really good speakers. I'm excited to kind of hear about it. Yeah, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday indeed, as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, listeners, welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we tell you what the heck is trading. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but the markets are green and vol is red. Tell me, have you seen this before? Have you seen this playing out at all before? Let me know if you have, because it's kind of new to me out here on the screens. Yes, as we're kicking off the show, everything's moving kind of mildly in the direction it's apparently supposed to these days. S&P up about a little over 1/3%. Dow closing in on 0.5%. NASDAQ closing in on 2/3% to the upside, and the VIX cash drifting back down at about a 19 handle when we kicked off the show, ticking ever so slightly below that, back to threatening an 18 handle right now, 18.95. Sure, now that all my puts are gone, now we start talking 18 handles. Of course, I see how it works, VIX. I see how you're working out there. So back to the old script, markets up, vol coming back down. But again, gently, it's another one of these sessions where if the worm turns at any moment, we could be talking about something very different, even by the end of the show. Our old pal VVIX out there still staying about as frothy as it was on Monday. It was a 108 on Monday, 108 coming into the start of the show today. So no change on the vol front, which is kind of interesting in and of itself, and maybe a sign that perhaps some folks are still keeping an eye out for that next shoe to drop. Skew still juicy, vol has come off its highs, but it's still relatively frothy out there. So some intriguing things to unpack. I want to start with the Flowmaster. I know you've been at the conference, and we'll get to all that fun stuff in a second. I want to do a full RMC rundown in a minute. But first, if you've had any chance in between your sessions to keep an eye and notice any trends in the market, share them with us, sir.
Well, I think that we're in kind of an interesting time, right? I mean, the election is just a few weeks away, and you're actually hearing a lot of buzz about, it's by most accounts, it's kind of a toss-up. But then you notice that election betting is basically legal now, and so I know you can trade it on a couple of brokerage platforms, and there's a big website that people use, and I think that's really is kind of the focus. People are really trying to figure out how this is going to play out, and I think a lot of people are kind of in a wait and see mode. We are pretty much at all-time highs. VIX is definitely a little bit elevated, I think, because because of the election. Also, I think because, and actually Dean Kernot has some nice notes on this, there's probably some people that might be, typical sellers of this volatility, especially because realized vol is kind of, in the 7-8 range and VIX is in 20. So that basically presents opportunity to sell some options and just dynamically hedge them. But people aren't doing that. And they're not doing that, I think, because nobody really wants to be caught with anything very big in their book as the election really kind of comes down to the wire. And, who knows what the aftermath is going to be. Maybe nothing's going to happen, or maybe, there's certainly a chance things get a little bit funky out there. So, but I mean, it's we've seen some pretty good market action. Just with a kind of a higher vol environment.
Yeah, you're right about the election products. This is the first year we could really trade. I mean, you can always trade, obviously, SPX and vol around the election, and you're kind of trading tangentially around the presidential election. Everyone could have done that for years. This is the first time we could really trade listed products in the U.S. directly on the election. They've been approved very recently. We just had the folks from IB on our Pro Q&A last week, actually. And they're all jazzed up because they just got approval recently for their effective binaries on the election. I'm looking at the numbers right now from their markets, the Forecast EX markets from IB listeners. Again, a wholly owned subsidiary of IB. And they're putting up some men. It's been a huge swing. Last week when we were talking about this for the first time, I think Harris was around 51%, maybe 52%. She has dropped to 43%. Yes, 57% no's. That's a huge swing in these markets. Also, size volume on her, almost 1.1 million contracts have changed hands now versus 363,000 for Trump, which is actually lower than before, which is kind of interesting. And Trump, 57% now. That's a wild swing. He was 49% this time a week ago. So big moves out there. I know our pro members have been really jazzed about these markets. And it's just exciting to be able to trade these. And it's not some international binary venue that's illegal here in the U.S. and you've never heard of. It's a real legit outlet you've heard of that you can actually trade legit binaries on the election for the first time. So that is pretty fascinating. As we go on out to the land of the meatball. Mr. Meatball, sir, what is catching your eye out there in the markets today?
Yeah, we're up. We opened up big, actually got down to flat on the day, and have since rallied. I've been watching the different markets. There's kind of two different marketplaces. One that that there's Kalshi, which is only U.S. residents, I believe, can bet on, and then there's Polymarket, and there is a spread there. The Polymarket's actually over 60% now, and Kalshi's around 58%. So it's really been interesting watching these election markets move. What I'm watching really closely is if those betting markets start to move toward a near certainty, does the VIX pull back? Because the VIX has been holding relatively firm for some time. And if the VIX, with the presidential election starting to maybe take some shape, doesn't pull back, then you have to wonder whether there's something going on. And what would that thing be? Maybe bonds, because bond vol and the drop in bonds has been pretty stunning. I think I don't think I'm the only person here that was not surprised that we saw a little bit of a pullback post-Fed, but the breadth of this sell-off post-Fed has been pretty strong. And the pop in bond volatility, let me see where the move index is. The move index is at 122. That's not that, and was up to 128 yesterday. The move index is pretty darn high. So that's a little bit of an eyebrow raiser.
Ah, yes, our old pal, the move. We were just talking about that a few days ago here on the network. So intriguing stuff as we go out now to the hinterlands of Chicago. Mr. Uncle Mike and Uncle Mike type of day. What is catching your eye out there in the market, sir?
Well, we're close to new all-time highs. Not quite able to break through, but you never know. We might break through on the show itself. All-time high with the S&P is 58.78. We're 15 points off of that right now, so it's not totally out of the question that it could happen during the show, but not going to count on that by any means. Yeah, we definitely have some selling going on in the bond market, and I really do think that just with the talk of lowering interest rates, the rally that we had, I think the bond market kind of overshot a little bit. And I think it's kind of, for lack of a better term, reverting back to being fairly priced, if you would. And so I don't really see too much more of a sell-off happening, but I could be wrong in the bond market, that is. Because if all of a sudden, let's say the market likes what it sees in the election or the perception of what the election is going to be, then that might be a risk-on signal, and that might lead to more of a sell-off in the bonds. So we do have that. Some individual names of which I'm looking at. Taiwan Semiconductor is the big name on the day. That is up over 12% on earnings. And so I think that that's something that is pulling up the tech sector a little bit. With that, it just because of the China, Hong Kong, U.S. relations, whatever way you want to put it in that stock, there is concern of that stock. But it seems that a lot of people, at least today anyway, aren't concerned with the international relations that are going on with that. And so a lot of it is they need us, we need them, seems to be the feel of it. Some other names that are catching my eye. Apple, not so much today, but Apple is back above the 230 mark. So that's something of note. Going into earnings season, Apple is rallying. JP Morgan is holding its rally that it's had a few days ago. And the one that's really catching my eye that we haven't really had a ton of movement in, and just kind of sitting there for the time being, and this is over the last few weeks, is Microsoft, still at the 417 level. Nothing's really bounced up higher. We're just kind of sitting there doing nothing, at least for Microsoft standards. And that's what I'm seeing for today.
All right, let's now go back to the hallowed halls of Snowbird, where we are all waiting with bated breath. The Flowmaster has been diligently cataloging all of the presentations. If you've never been to RMC, listeners, I get it. It's a tough ticket. It's a pricey ticket to get out there. Luckily, we got you covered here on the network. Always fascinating stuff. I always joke, there's always a couple people out there who say, have you heard of the majesty of selling out of the money puts? There's a few of those. But outside of those, there's always some fascinating stuff. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, the floor is yours. I've bookmarked, 37 minutes for you, sir. You got all the time in the world. What's catching your eye? What's the hot stuff coming out of RMC this year?
I will not take up 37 minutes, but it's a good conference. The best thing about RMC, and I've even before I worked for Cboe, I did manage to get to several of them, and it's very different than kind of the industry conferences that we usually go to. It's obviously Cboe specific, so it's about what it's sponsored by one exchange. Very heavy academic participation. In fact, we give out. The Options Institute, which is part of Cboe, gives out some grants at the end, and then the academics that did the work present their results. So it's really very, very interesting. It's very focused on volatility trading, index trading. We had a great product roundtable where we went through the new variance futures, the new options on VIX futures themselves. Some interesting things I even learned. I did not know that in the options on VIX futures, which are very similar to VIX options that we're used to, but they're different. They expire into futures, and it's important for people that are even thinking about trading them to really dig into the difference between options on a future and options on an index. But one thing is they do not allow contrary exercise on the VIX, the options on VIX futures, which is, that's been a topic at some of the other conferences, because contrary exercise is one of the funky parts of the way options work, where they're, that's not modeled in your Black-Scholes pricing model, right? Whether or not something's going to pin, and then whether or not you're going to get assigned if you're shorted. There were a lot of panels yesterday on ETF, the explosion in ETFs that use options. And in fact, one of the hosts mentioned that he's counted 500 option strategies that are now available via ETF, which kind of blew my mind and makes me want to, basically start a spreadsheet and see if I can actually, organize them all. But we all know there's yield ETFs, there's put right ETFs, there's buy right ETFs, there's call spread ETFs, there's ETFs that sell half of a call instead of a whole call in terms of the notional value. So it's been great so far. Coming up, we're going to be digging into the dynamics around the election, which I actually was lucky enough to talk to Ed Tom, who is one of our macro strategists, about that, because that's what he's going to dig into. And it's an interesting topic. Obviously, it's a little sensitive for plenty of people to talk about. But one thing that was kind of interesting is, it is. I know what the betting sites show, but I think Hillary Clinton was up by 10 points going into that election as well, and the likelihood of it being very, very close is super high. And then the likelihood of if Trump loses, him basically starting legal proceedings to dig into whether or not he really lost, that's probably going to happen, because that's what he likes to do, right? So in a way, if he loses, we probably do end up in this situation where things drag out for a while. And if he wins, we won't. So it's I think there's a lot of people trying to figure out, but there was just a panel earlier, and Ewan Sinclair, who's a quant that works with Blair Hull, who was my first boss in the business. He mentioned some kind of funny things, is that, immediately after Trump won, the market sold off because everyone was like, oh my God. And then we rallied, and basically, the market had had a great 4 years. And then when Biden won, people said the same thing. Okay, here comes all these heavy spending Democratic policies, so the market's going to tank. And we also had a really good 4 years. So he was basically pointing out that basically 98% of the country has been wrong about what the market will do with the person that ends up in the White House. So that covers some of the basics. I'll have more notes for next week. So because there's still more content to come. And it's very exciting. And then also this morning, Cboe put out a press release that Robinhood has announced they're going to start index options trading, which is also pretty exciting. They do trade 6 million option contracts a day based on the 606 data. They are kind of neck and neck with Schwab. So adding a new kind of class of products to their, I believe they have over 20 million retail accounts. And about a quarter of those are option enabled. So it's a lot of potential to come into the market, that volume that either hasn't been taking place, or it's been printing in other instruments, but they'll now have the option to use index options. So it's been fun. And I'll tell you, the weather here is kind of like it was in Iceland. It is cold and a little bit like freezing snow. And potentially we're going to get a foot of snow starting around 6 o'clock tonight. So that'll be interesting.
Wow, a lot to unpack there, sir. Interesting. First off, get the kids hooked on indexes early over there at Robinhood. I like it. Interesting stuff there. Also interesting that they are dispelling and just dispensing with the contra exercise out of the gate on the daily VIX options. So they're taking the big sticking point on daily options just away to start with. Sounds like they're getting ahead of that, which is kind of interesting. These people have been assuming for a while that this is going to be, the tilt at the daily VIX windmill. Sounds like that move is definitely heading in that direction. So a lot of fun stuff. We'll look forward to your update again with more details next week, Mr. Flowmaster. If you want even more, we heard that little hit from some crazy guy who calls himself Dr. VIX at the start of the show. He will, I do believe, be getting off the plane right at the start of Vol Views tomorrow. So we should be able to get a good in-depth recap from him as well. So if you want more RMC listeners, we got you covered. I noticed we got one of our pro members beaming in, listening live from the courthouse, doing jury duty today. Well, good job doing your civic duty. And B, we will endeavor to keep you informed and perhaps just entertained while you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs in the jury room. I know, I've been there. Remind me to tell you my story once again about how I missed Mr. T by one day on jury duty, but I digress. Let's get out to the markets today, listeners. Is it a hot banger day? Well, it kind of depends where you look. VIX closing in on 500,000 contracts. That's respectable, 491 right now, especially given the fact that the ADV is still only 818, kind of light out there. What's lighting it up out there in VIX land today? 36,000 of the Nove 23 calls, followed by 36,000 as well of the Nove 17 puts. Number 3, 30,000 of the Nove 19s. All Nove all the time, baby. Number 4, 28,000 of the Nove 19 puts. And number 5, 26,000 of the Nove 15 puts. SPY looking about where we expected. We expected right around 4.35. It's about 4.3 right now. The ADV close to 7.5 million out there. The S looking a little bit frothy. We expect around 1.75 million this time of the show. It's at about 1.9 million. The ADV just a tick below 3 million. Small caps looking spicy and adding a decent amount more paper since we started the show, actually. They're up to 742,000, so they're well on their way to hitting their ADV, which is exactly 1.3 million a day out there right now. And the Q is also looking a little frothy right now, a little bit north of 2.5, closing in on 2.55 million contracts right now. The ADV 3 3/4, so they seem like they're on track to hit that as well. Off to the single names we go, listeners. Is it a banger single name day? The answer is no, but it's not a nothing day either. It's kind of middle of the road day. Cost you 229,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That gets you to our old pal American Airlines. Trading $12.90, literally unched right now. It's had exactly a 30-cent range today, $12.67 to the dark side, $12.97 to the upside, hanging out at $12.90 right now. Good for number 10, 229,000 contracts. We've been talking about some airlines, some long-term puts in some of these airlines. I believe American was one of them. So intriguing stuff out there. SoFi number 9, 253,000 contracts. 983 off 21 cents today. It's had a range of 1003 to the upside and 962 to the dark side. Again, hanging out at number 9, 253,000 contracts. Number 8, the artist formerly known as Broadcom, now AVGo, 257,000 contracts. Popping hard today, trading 184 even, up 713, a little about 4% actually on the day. So good little day here for AVGo. Number 7, keeping the A tech. Oh, we got a whole little A tech strip here today, listeners. Number 7, out to the newest member of the Dow. It's the Amazonians, 260,000 contracts. Amazon popping 188.5, up about $1.50, or almost a percent, about 0.8%. They've had a range of 186 even on the dark side and 188.94 on the upside. So almost a $3 range, hanging out in the upper end of that trajectory right now. Number 7, 260,000 contracts on the tape. Number 6, keeping the A tech love alive because why not? It's AMD, 341,000 contracts, 158.43 is where we're hanging out right now, up 230 or about 1.5%. Again, good for number 6, 341,000 contracts. Number 5, it's the fruit company. They're back in this kind of 300K range again, which usually not a good sign for them, at least volume-wise. It's a decent sign underlying-wise. They continue to be in the green. Today, they are at 232 and about a half, up about 0.75 bucks. Not even a percent, about 1/3%. Good for only 359,000 contracts, but that manages to get them to the number 5 spot. Number 4, Super Microcomputer Inc., aka SMCI, 48 bucks even, off $0.75. They've had a range of 47.35 to the dark side and 50.61 to the upside, hanging out closer to the bottom end of that range. Good for number 4. We're all the way at number 4, listeners. We're only at 396,000 contracts. So we got to take a bit of a jump, and we do for number 3. Good old Taiwan Semi, ticker symbols TSM, 210.5, up $23 or 12.3%. They, I think, knocked the cover off the ball, to put it mildly, out there on their numbers. Good for number 3, 689,000. That's still kind of light for number 3, but it's better. It's more respectable. Number 2, Tesla, also looking kind of light, 818,000 contracts, 220.5, off about 80 cents. So not a banger moment for them. They've had a little bit more of a range today, about a $4 range, 221.80 to the upside, 217.90 to the dark side, so 390 on the range today. Good for number 2, 818,000 contracts. And the big dog today, looking a little bit bigger from a volume perspective as well. NVIDIA, just a tick under 4 million contracts, 3.99. I'm sure if I re-rack that now, it would be right at 4 million. NVIDIA feeling that little bit of upside love out there that all the chip makers are feeling post TSM. 139.64, up nearly $4 or nearly 3%. So everyone who's wringing their hands, a month and change ago, that they were threatening the PAR strike back in August a couple of times, and in September, they're now up 37 handles from where they were in September 6th. So a good month for the NVIDIA bulls out there. And you know what? We're back in it again for earnings, listeners. So luckily for all you folks who love crunching the earnings data, we got you covered. Hot week this week, right out of the gate. My old pal, Walgreens Boots Alliance on Tuesday. Citibank and Bank of America, J&J, and Chucky Schwab, and Goldman, and PNC, and IB, they of election trading infamy, and United Airlines. It's just on Tuesday. Wednesday, we had Morgan Stanley, and we had Alcoa. Today, we've got the old Widowmaker, a.k.a. Is it still the Widowmaker? I don't know. Maybe not. I think maybe it has been usurped by other names. And then tomorrow, we've got more banks, Fifth Third Bank, Ally, Amex, all sorts of fun. So a lot of big names popping off right now. We are right back in the mix, listeners. So if you're excited by these things, we got you covered. We got some earnings move results and everything else hot off the presses from our friends over there at Oratsland. It's like they know when the show goes live. It's great. Let's go really quickly. Let's go out to the former kickoff name for earnings season. This is Alcoa. They were yesterday after the bell. They went into their announcement, $42, pretty much even. They're pricing in 5%. They delivered 1.3%. They were at 41.5 when we ran this report. They have since dropped another $1 since we ran this report. So they're trading 40.5 now. So they've moved nearly 4%. So they're moving closer to in line with their straddle, listeners. So the premium sellers not looking as good as they were earlier this morning out there. And we got a bunch of names popping off here. Let's just do a couple more. Let's go out to Iridium Communications. I've talked about them in a while. They were today before the bell, ticker symbol IRDM. They were trading $30 and about a quarter going into their announcement. They were pricing in 8.1%. They delivered nearly 14%. So a banger day for them. They're up about 12.25% now. So still outperforming their straddle. So I guess it's a banger day out there in good old satellite phones. And then, you know what, just for fun, let's do our old pal Taiwan Semi. You know they outperformed. They were today before the bell. Going into their announcement, 187.5. They were pricing in, get this, listeners, 5.2%. Did they outperform? Oh, yeah. The question is how much. And as of this report, they had delivered nearly, actually about exactly 11%. Right now, they're closing in on 12%. So they get the earnings outperformance award for the season so far. We got a ton more here. Upcoming names. Let's look really quickly after the bell today. Netflix, 702 even when we ran this report this morning. They were pricing in $52.5. In the past, they've moved $80 almost exactly. So that's quite the haircut for Netflix. Is that merited or is that maybe a little bit underdone? I don't know. You folks who've been slinging a lot of Netflix of late, let us know. A ton of other names out there. I mentioned Ally popping off later today. Good old Zion's Bank Corp. I haven't talked about them in forever. GE and GM coming up next week. We got all of them here. We got tickers for days here, listeners. Head on out, theoptionsinsider.com, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires on these. Tesla coming up on the 23rd. All kinds of hot stuff. The season, now the long-term average, you may have some questions about this, and maybe it's worth a deeper exploration on a further show, because some people might be confused. It has dropped to 104% from 113%. You might say, wait a minute, last season was a banger. How did that happen? But this is a rolling 3-year average. So obviously the most recent, the last month in that list dropped off. And so that hit the average. That was obviously a banger. I need to go back 3 years and look at that cycle and see exactly what was on the docket there. So that could be contributing to that number. But we'll get more insight into that when we chat with the folks over there in Oratsland. But now it's time to chat about some unusual activity. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Let's get into it. Our chat likes hearing about good old Ewan Sinclair. Yeah, don't mention elections to that guy. He'll he gets a little fired up talking about one of the candidates. I'll let you folks choose which one. As we keep on rolling out to the Odd Block here this week, listeners. The Flowmaster, I expected him to say, you know what? I'm busy taking all the notes, analyzing all the sessions here from RNC. I didn't have a chance to do my duty for the listeners this week. But you know what, listeners? The Flowmaster won't let you down like that. He came bringing the goods again this week, including a newcomer for the program and indeed the network. This is Centene Corp, ticker symbol CNC. This is a publicly traded managed care company out of St. Louis, trading about 62.60 right now, off 6 3/4 or nearly 10%. So clearly not a banger day for this managed care company out of St. Louis. On the year, let's see how things are looking. And you know what? The year looks almost identical to today. They're off about 10% today. They're off 13.25% for the year, $9.50. So yeah, it's been a bad couple of weeks here for CNC. A year ago, they were $72, and then they rallied them all the way up to about 81.5 back in February of this year. Then they had a weird trajectory. They crushed them down to about 64.90 in July. Then they rallied them hard again, back up to about 80.25. This is a wild managed care company. And then they fell off a cliff again to $70 in September, right back up to 76.5 on September 16th. And they've been hanging out in this, mid to low 70s range until just a couple of days ago, the 14th, and then they fell off a cliff. They were $73 on the 14th. Next thing you know, they have plummeted all the way to 62.5 right now. So, not looking good here for CNC. I'm going to go out on a limb, Mr. Flowmaster. I haven't looked at your flow yet. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say maybe some people are buying some puts. Is that what we're seeing, sir?
Henry,
well,
this was some of the shadiest paper I've seen in a long time. Unbelievable.
Well, listen, I don't. They don't let me call things shady anymore. But it appears that a put buyer,
it was well timed. How about that?
Was very fortunate in their timing. So it's funny. I've been traveling, so I didn't even notice this. But this actually probably counts as a double odd block because not only was the put volume exceptionally heavy yesterday, but it was actually very heavy the day before as well. So let's start with yesterday though. So hold on a second, pull it up in Trade Alert. So volume yesterday was about 7 times normal, and hold on, sorry about that. I guess low Wi-Fi at the hotel here. And what's interesting is, so what it looked like at first glance was actually a put seller. Sorry. Computer's not cooperating. So the October 66 puts saw a big block at 10:07, 8,500 of them traded for 15 cents. We know it was opening. The market was 10 cents at 15 cents. So an obvious buyer. Today, we basically saw them unwind about 10,000 of those, and it did create new open interest to kind of confirming it was an opening buyer. Today, they with the stock down 10%, and weirdly on no news that I can find, there's something about one of their health plans getting some sort of accreditation, but it's a positive news. But they got out of 10,000 of these for 330 or so today. So 10,000 puts from 15 cents to $3 over $3 overnight. It's basically a $3 million winner on $150,000 in capital. That's one heck of a trade. And I as Mark said, it seems a little bit unusual, very unusual. But what's interesting is actually, if you go back to the day before, there actually was a pretty decent roll of some existing puts. So if you look at kind of the put volume over the last few days, it was heavy yesterday. It was also heavy the day before. And that was a roll, I believe, from the 72 down to the 65s. So I think they actually might still have some of those on. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on, why the stock is taking such a beating, but it's an example of somebody putting on a trade that had, kind of some of the crazy levels of appreciation, 2,000% return overnight that we hear about every once in a while. So, worth paying attention to. That's all I'll say.
Well done.
I will say I saw this paper in like almost real time. And I was live in my room where we trade money flows. And I bought some puts. I bought the 67.5s and sold them at $5 today. It worked out. But I saw this. I literally was singing I was literally told everybody, on air, I was like, this is some of the shadiest paper I've seen. These expire on Friday. Why are they opening these for 15 cents? I'm just going to take a flyer on a couple puts. And lo and behold, shockingly, they were right.
15 cents to $5. Not a bad do, as the kids say. Mr. Flowmaster, I know there's some sessions popping off right now you want to go check out. Before you go, if folks want to check out what you got cooking in Cboe land, where should they go, sir?
Just head over to cboe.com/RMA, and you can see our data and our platforms. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I'll definitely put together some notes, a little recap, a couple pictures. So Henry Schwartz on LinkedIn, and I'm going to go see JJ Kinahan talk about retail flow.
Oh, boo that guy.
Oh, interesting.
Can't stand that guy. So have fun, Mr. Flowmaster. Thanks for the update. We'll look forward to a complete wrap-up of RMC on your next appearance next week. Now get out of here go dodge the snow before you get trapped there. As we keep on rolling, let's do a quick check-in, listeners, on a print we talked about on Monday. This was the hot one on the show on Monday. Everybody and their mother had to have these Soundhound Nove 5 halves for 40 cents. The stock was $5.32 at the time. And in the intervening days, in fact, it was so hot, so controversial, we thought we'd put it out to you folks. In fact, it's still live right now. I think we got a couple of minutes left. So if you're listening live, you can still vote in our poll. But we asked you folks, just starting on Monday, it's still running through right now. They bought 23,311 of the Nove 5 halves on Monday for 40 cents. They came back, liked it so much, I think they did a total of 30-odd thousand. You folks buyers or sellers at that level, and you folks have been leaning towards the buy side, 61.1% right now, 38.9% said sold to you. And it does seem like buying is the right answer. The stock has had quite the run this week. It got up to about almost 560, so it broke through the strike already on Tuesday, and it got close to that again. Let's see, how high did it get today? Today we got up to 563, so we broke it again today. So these calls have been on a tear. We've also dropped right back down. So I mentioned this yesterday. I believe it was on Options Bootcamp yesterday, I believe, that if you liked these on Monday, they were still trading around 40 cents yesterday. So you could have got back in, and lo and behold, the stock rallied again. And now we're kind of back to that 530. So the stock is almost unched. So it's been quite the wild ride. Mr. Meatball, we talked about these with your compatriot, I believe, on Monday. I'm sure you saw these. These were the big print of the day on Monday. What are your thoughts on these Soundhound Nove 5 halves, which, by the way, listeners, they're still open. There's 60,000 contracts open on the strike right now. So some people like these, Mr. Meatball. Are you one of them?
Yeah. I mean, the stock keeps bouncing around, and it's had some nice run. It's had a nice run up, but seems to have kind of, run into resistance at 5.5 every time it gets over it. But they're betting pretty big that it's going to break it. Earnings look like they're right before that they expire, so this might be an earnings play.
Yeah, that's what makes it a little bit more enticing to me, because you get the announcement on November 7th. If it didn't have that, it'd just be kind of rolling the dice, and it obviously still is, but it has a little bit more grist for the mill with an earnings announcement baked in there as well. So I know a lot of you have been watching these. They've been vacillating all over. You've already had chances to get out of them for profits if you had them, but if you still like to get in them, then maybe today is your huckleberry there, listeners. We're not done with the healthcare, though, listener. Let's go out to CYH right now. This is Community Health Systems, Inc., trading $5.90 right now, off about a dime today. It's had a little bit more of a range, about 22 cents. It hit $6 earlier today, and the low was $5.78 today, so a 22-cent range. On the year, though, it's been a banger. Who needs AI? This thing's up 111% on the year, up a little over $3. So, wow. It's been pretty much straight up on this chart, too, with a couple of sell-offs. One fell sell-off in February. That's kind of about it. So, yeah, this has been a good year to be long some Community Health Systems, Inc. And looking at our flow today, it seems like somebody is keeping the love alive, listener. Somebody came in this morning. They said, Nove 7s, how are they? They got 25 cents at 35. They said, done, I will pay 35 cents. 7,142 times. The stock was right about here, 588. So the stock hasn't moved. So chances are they're probably not at 35 anymore. I have to pull them up. Probably you can get them at 40 though, maybe, if you are so inclined, if you're really feeling your oats on these CYH calls. Worth noting, let's see, are there going to... Yeah, there are earnings. So once again, we have earnings in the cycle. These are a little bit closer to home, so you're probably going to find out sooner than the sound calls whether these are a good do or not, as the kids say, because earnings are on October 23rd, so you got to wait about a week to find out if these calls are going to come home to roost. Now, 7, that's a spicy meatball for this stock to really hit. I mean, what's the highest it hit this year was 630 back in September. So to hit all the way to 7 and then of course 735 to break even on these calls, you need these earnings to really crush it. Mr. Meatball, we were just talking about those calls, or excuse me, the puts with the Flowmaster. Now we got calls in community health systems. There's earnings in these too, but stocks really got to move. What are your thoughts on these?
I mean, the healthcare, that's volatile, and especially with election season and everything going on, that you're seeing some big moves in these names clearly. So makes some sense.
So gun to your head right now, Nove 5/2 in Soundhound for 40 cents or Nove 7s for 35 cents in CYH. Which way you going, sir?
I think I'm going to go with the Soundhound.
Yeah, I think you got to go with the Soundhound. It's the clear.
You got to go with the Soundhound.
They've broken the strike twice already, so they could do it. This one, the CRH, seems like a bit of a bridge maybe a bridge too far. We don't know. But intriguing stuff. Which one would you prefer, listeners? Hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, time to go around the block. Excuse me. We got a bunch of questions we've asked you folks over this past week to pay off, all sorts of fun stuff. First off, we asked, this was kind of prompted by my discussion last week with Dr. Vix on vol views. We got into this whole notion of the October surprise. We said it seems like maybe they're pricing in something popping off between now and the election. So we thought we'd put it out to you folks. You are the ultimate arbiters at the end of the day of all things. We said, do you think we'll see an October surprise that impacts the election? Yes or no? Very simple. And you folks are feeling a little bit of that quote unquote spookage. 73.7% saying yes, you are feeling that there's going to be an October surprise. 26.3% saying no. Mr. Uncle Mike, you're kind of usually our ray of optimism, our ray of sunshine here on the show. Are you agreeing with our audience? You think we're going to see something that shakes up the game between now and election, sir? Or are you taking the 26.3% that says no?
I'm going with the 26.3%. Typically, I like to go with our audience, but I think if we were going to have a surprise, we would have had it by now. If anything of a surprise happening, I think we're going to have the surprise after the election if there is a surprise, but then I don't think it'll be much of a surprise because of all the surprises we've had in the past election.
Oh, a surprise after the election? I don't like the sound of that, sir. The last time we had a surprise after the election, people were rioting on the Capitol. That wasn't good for anybody. Let's hope.
It wasn't.
Hope there's no post-election surprises this time. I didn't put out a poll for that. I don't want to speak that into the ether out there. Is there going to be a post? Is that going to be a new thing? A December or January surprise? God, I hope not. All right. We also have other questions out here. We asked you folks about going back to the election. Election, obviously a hot topic right now. We're a month out. A lot still has to happen between now and the election. However, when the dust settles, where will VIX open? On Wednesday morning, the day after the election. So I guess if you're a buyer of Uncle Mike's post-election surprise, you're going to be buying all the VIX after the election. But we gave you 4 choices. Around here, 18 to 22, a little bit higher, 22 to 26, still higher, north of 26, or back below 18. That was the winner of our poll. 38.7% of the audience choosing that. 29% saying things are still going to be frothy after the election. 22 to 26. A 19.4% sounds like you're down for the Uncle Mike post-election surprise. You say VIX is going to be north of 26 on Wednesday morning. And around here, 18 to 22, only 12.9%. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts? Are you down with that? You think VIX is going to immediately retreat back below 18 on election day, or you think something else is in store for us, sir?
I mean, it will by the end of the week. I don't know if immediately following that day, but yes, there will be some weakness in the VIX following the election, unless we truly are in a scenario where we don't know what's going on.
Are you a buyer of Uncle Mike's post-election surprise hypothesis?
I mean, it's possible. I doubt it, but it could happen.
Yeah.
But I like his point that since we know since we expect a surprise, it won't be a surprise.
Yeah, that's true. Ever since Reagan, everyone expects it now. But you said it should have happened by now, but I think the Hillary thing happened about a week before the election, as I recall, back in 2016. So there still is time to get the surprises out. We also asked you last week, this was a contentious one, obviously, because anything around this name is contentious. We're talking DJT. Somebody came in last week. They bought 50,000. They were not messing around of the Nove 25-35 call spread. They paid $238 for that a week ago. We asked you folks, at that level, are you a buyer or a seller? Our audience faded the hell out of this. 63.6% said sold to you. Only 36.4% would have bought it. I have to admit, I probably would have been in the sold to you camp as well. And that clearly was not the right answer, listener. The stock hit $33, 33 and a quarter on Tuesday. So it was well inside the range of that strike, of that spread, I should say. So I have to look and see if they got out of it, but that they could have got out of it for a decent amount. So go figure, some, let's say, well-timed paper in DJT. What a surprise. But yeah, all kinds of questions in the offing. Like I said, right now, the sound calls just finished. The poll just ended as I was talking. 61.1% is the final tally for you folks wanting to buy them. I can't say I fault you. Of all the ones we've talked about, I probably like those the most. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until our Monday episode, sir?
I want to see if we get all-time highs, of course, in the markets, looking at bonds, seeing if that continues to sell off. And then my post-election surprise that might not be a surprise, not trying to be political here, but one thing that I did enjoy about the Trump administration is whenever he would say, we're going to raise the tariffs on everything, and then the market would dip, that was really quite the buy signal for me. So if he comes back into office, that's something that I'm excited about looking at and trading short term, should that happen. So with that being said, watching that, and then I'm going to keep an eye on DJT. I think that'll just be entertaining to watch these next few weeks as well.
Well, certainly entertaining. If you bought that call spread, you're looking pretty good. Mr. Meatball, sir, same question for you. What are you keeping an eye on till the Monday episode?
Again, I'm watching these markets, and I'm keeping an eye on the bond market. It's at a spot where it needs to find some support and rally. Otherwise, who knows? But that bond market is giving me the willies.
Giving you the old heebie-jeebies. You know what, listeners? I think Uncle Mike's little post-election surprise is the perfect fodder for a flash poll. So maybe producers will put that out. I don't even know what a post-election surprise would be. It kind of scares the hell out of me, to be quite honest. But it is also intriguing, so maybe we will put that out. Maybe we will discuss the results tomorrow on Vol Views. Unfortunately, that music means we are done with the show for today. I want to thank the Flowmaster for taking some time out of his RMC experience to share with us. Unfortunately, he had to let some Yahoo called Dr. Vix come on in as well. We'll probably edit that out of the show, listeners. You don't need to be subjected to that. But as we go around the horn, Mr. Uncle Mike, where should folks go if they want more Uncle Mike goodness in their lives?
By all means, follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw. And if you are looking for a financial advisor who is not afraid of post-election surprises, or pre-election for that matter, seek me out on my website, stcharleswealth.com. Book an appointment with me. Would love to have a conversation with any of our listeners.
And we will find out, Mr. Uncle Mike. We will make that an official poll, so we will know what the audience has to say. And Mr. Meatball,
Loving
sir,
it.
Mr. Meatball, sure, where should folks go if they want to discuss, maybe scoop some of these 15-cent puts with you?
Yeah, check me out at optionpit.com and follow me on Twitter at optionpit.
And you know where to go to see the Flowmaster's goodies, Cboe.com/RMA. That's going to do it for us on the old OB. But if you're listening live, maybe if you're hanging out in jury duty with us, don't worry, we're not done yet. I'll be back in a little bit with our old pal, Miss Carly Garner, to talk about all the action in the world of futures options on This Week in Futures Options. Maybe she can tackle that settlement question that has flummoxed all of our guests this week. The devil is truly in the details with these products. Find out in a little bit on TWIFO. Then, of course, we're back again tomorrow for a little bit of vol views action. Maybe we'll have our buddy, Mr. Dr. Bix, joining us if he can make the connections work there on the show to give us his view on all things RMC. We'll have some fun special guests on the show tomorrow, so make sure you tune into Vol Views to see who those are. All of our pro folks, I do think I'll be doing oddities a little bit early. I got stuff going on right during oddities time for the next couple of weeks, so I think we'll be moving it earlier to Thursday nights, which means you have to wait even less time to get your oddities on the pro podcast feed. So look for that hitting you maybe later tonight. And then we're back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.